Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around. Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Back here where we need ya. Back here where we need ya. Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
More A Week Radio chats with boxing writer Joseph Herron.
Guys, good evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Friday to everyone. And boy, I tell you what a shocker. Boy, I am genuinely surprised. We just finished witnessing the live weigh-in from Las Vegas, Nevada. Obviously closed off to the public with only media and team members in attendance. And here are the weights. Deontay Wilder weighs in at a career heaviest, 238 pounds. And Tyson Fury also shockingly weighs in at a career heaviest, 277 pounds. And guys, to analyze everything, we're being joined currently by our very dear friend and editor-in-chief of FightSaga.com, the one and only Mr. Lee. Cleveland Lee, how the heck are you, brother?
Hey, man, I'm ready for this fight. Can't wait. I've been excited for a long time, man. So, yeah, let's talk boxing.
Yeah, I tell you what. And once again, guys, like yesterday on the final press conference review that I staged yesterday, and I live on the air, I let everyone know what, my brother, Javen Sugar Hill Stewart, told me this past weekend, that Tyson Fury would be weighing in at a very slender and fit between 260 and 265. But lo and behold, onto the stage he walks this afternoon from Vegas, fully clothed, wearing an Amish hat with a t-shirt, as well as, a baggy set of trousers. Fully clothed, even with shoes on. Steps onto the scale and weighs 277. At age 33, Lee, are you a bit surprised that he weighed in at 277? Keep in mind, for the rematch, he weighed a career high at the time, 273.
No, not at all. And the reason I'm not surprised is obviously, he's getting to that point, getting to be the mid-30s. You typically put on the pounds, your bones get a little bit bigger. You put on that man weight, so to speak. But number two is, he fought that was the most impressive fight of his career. So I'm Tyson Fury. I just fought the most impressive fight of my career at 273, and I'm fighting the same guy over again. I'm not fighting like Usyk or anybody else. So why not come in at around 273, to 277? He had clothes on, he had shoes on. So you take all that stuff off of him, and he's 273. So I'm not surprised. I think that, why not come in at that weight? He looked great.
Indeed. In my opinion, like I said, I was a little bit surprised because once again, Javen told me all of this in the weekend before fight week, right? That's quite a hike actually from 265. Before we get into and get your thoughts on Deontay Wilder's bulky physique and a career high 238 weigh-in, let's give a shout out to some members on the chat. Shout out to my brother Randy Hill. God bless you, brother. My old high school buddy. It's good to see you hanging with us. Hope you're excited to see this fight this weekend. Also, my brother AJ, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. God bless you. Hope you're looking forward to this fight also. And always our brother Wayne Hennessy. Salute to Joseph and Lee. Salute to you, my brother. Lee, Deontay Wilder came in with just his trunks on, stepped onto the scale. He looked big, a very big, muscular, physically fit, very imposing looking.
Right.
Weighing 238, career high. And when asked by Bernardo Asuna of ESPN, what's up with the weight gain, he said, look, I'm benching right now over 350 pounds. I don't care what he weighs. He's not going to be pushing me around in this fight. Obviously, that was the purpose for bulking up and putting all this muscle. But Lee, will this actually prove to be an advantage on Saturday night?
Not from what you're telling me. I'll tell you why. Of course, this is, I've boxed before, and I used to train a lot of top guys. When you start talking about how much you bench, that's a problem, because there is no correlation between bench pressing and boxing. I mean, maybe there's some. If you want to physically push the guy back and you want to rough, so he has a point there, but that doesn't really mean you're strong. I mean, being able to bench press a house means you can bench press a house. It doesn't mean you can out wrestle somebody. It might help, but when you start talking about your bench press, that to me that's a little bit concerning, because that's not going to help his punch. Might hurt his punch at the way he's coming in. So I think that while Tyson Fury's weight seems fine, Deontay Wilder is a little heavy. I like to see him maybe around 228, 230. Instead of way up at 238. I don't think I think that might hinder him. I think that he might get a little more tired. I think that, like some of that amazing speed, that snap that he had, might be missing, especially in the later part of the fight. If this gets past 4 or 5 rounds, how much snap is he going to have at that weight? So, but again, whenever you start talking about bench press, that's in boxing, that's not really a good sign. That's something like a linebacker would say, right? Or a defensive end or somebody, but
Indeed. And look, one of the more impressive qualities of Deontay Wilder in bouts past was his ability to close the distance very, very quickly and to fire off a straight right hand. That's how he got Berman Stivern out so quickly in the rematch. That's how he actually was able to land that demolishing right hand in the rematch against Luis Ortiz. And that's something that, Javid and Fury seem to be most worried about when discussing a third fight with Tyson Fury. And in my opinion, you're absolutely right, Lee. I think it might hinder his speed in being able to close that distance rather quickly if he does decide to be the predator in this fight. Let's go to the chats for just 1 second. Our brother Wayne Hennessy says, hopefully that weight can hold up Wilder's new suit. My word. We're going to be talking about that in just a bit, because yes, his new suit was revealed. And in my opinion, it looks almost identical to the last suit that he was complaining weighed 45 pounds, with the addition of some new lasers and pyrotechnics. Very interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit later. My brother Randy says, yes, this is for me the most exciting bout. It's hard to argue the closer we get to this fight. I'm actually feeling very pumped up and excited myself. Welcome, our brother Mohammed joins the show. Salute, Joseph. I didn't see the weigh-in. How did they look? And what's your read on that? We've just been talking about that. To recap, Tyson Fury weighs in at a career high, shockingly, 277. Everything that's contrary to what my brother Javen told me this past weekend. It wouldn't surprise me, guys, one bit if Tyson Fury, fully clothed, were actually carrying 2 egg weights in both pockets just to deceive Team Wilder. But you just never know with Tyson Fury. I know that's a little far-fetched and probably a little imaginable, a little too too much of the imagination going on, but you just never know with Tyson Fury. Simple Boy Jones joins us for the first time. Thank you for joining us, my friend. He says, look, I can bench 386 and at 5'11" doesn't prove anything. You're right. You're absolutely right. Sid UK joins us once again. Salute to you, brother. Says salute, Joseph and Lee. Salute to you. Thank you for joining us, my friend. But to recap, Deontay Wilder, the biggest and the most muscular, the bulkiest I've ever seen him. He comes in at a very stout, very in shape, but big 238 pounds, a career high weigh-in for him as well. Sid UK says this, I think Wilder's weight is good. It should help him in the clinches, and he is fast enough as it is. That strength training will help. That remains to be seen, and Deontay Wilder stated as much post-weigh-in. He said that, yeah, we put on this weight. He's not going to be able to push me around and back me up in this fight. Wow. So I stand corrected. Simple Boy. I'm a regular. Just don't comment very often. Well, you should comment more often, my friend. But thank you once again for always tuning in, my brother. I appreciate it. Lee, I tell you what, now Fury, when he was confronted by Bernardo Osuna of ESPN post-weigh-in, and once again, guys, they didn't have a weigh-in, or they didn't have a face-off once again. Even though they had plenty of security there, they both agreed that not having a face-off would probably be best. We'll talk about all of that in just 1 minute. But Fury's post-weigh-in comments, boy, he had nothing but fire on his mind. He basically sent Deontay Wilder to Hades, saying that he's a bum and that he's a bum being trained by a bum. He's not going to, and Bernardo Osuna asked him, well, what do you make of all the improvements that he's made between fights? He said, there are no improvements. He's a bum being trained by a bum, and I'm going to put him in the infirmary after this fight. He's in trouble. I'm going to annihilate him. End quote. Lee, I tell you what, Lee is, I guess he's taken a...
I'm here.
Oh, are you there, sir? Very
Yes, sir.
good. Lee, what do you make of Tyson Fury's mindset full of piss and vinegar for Deontay Wilder? Post-weigh-in comments.
Yeah, he's doing his thing. That's what he does. That's what he's most natural doing. That's what he's always done. So he's comfortable. He's out there doing his thing. He's getting into Wilder's head, and that's just Tyson Fury. And he's even getting into the coach's head. Bum being trained by a bum. Only Tyson Fury would say that. So he's just doing what he does, and this is good for him. This is what he does.
Yeah, and when Deontay Wilder, when Bernardo Osuna, and once again, Deontay Wilder can't help himself. He is the, poor man Socrates. He seems to, want to preach and, to anyone who will bother to listen. He basically said, yeah, I've been calm and cool. I'm very clear. I've got a violent mind, but right now I'm relaxed. And once again, he's regurgitating probably all of the things that Malik Scott's been drilling into his brain, hoping that something sticks, basically stating, yeah, because if you're not calm and relaxed, you're not going to make right decisions for yourself. You're not going to make good decisions in the ring. So I'm just going to stay calm and relaxed until the fight. And once again, this seems like he's just regurgitating, which is probably good for him. He's regurgitating probably everything that Malik Scott has been drilling into his medulla for the past 20 months. Will it serve him well? Will he be able to stay as calm and as poised as soon as he sees Tyson Fury opposite the ring, as soon as that first bell rings? We're joined right now by my brother, Young Billionaire. Welcome to the show, sir. Always insightful, Young Bill. Appreciate your nuggets of wisdom here, brother. Former prize fighter. He says Fury by stoppage again, Joseph. Well, I tell you what, that seems to be the going sentiment. Well, I will say this. And you'll see my head-to-head prediction tomorrow morning on Fight Saga. But Lee, what are your thoughts, man? Very quickly, before we go over the odds, very quick prediction, and you can explain as long as you'd like in what's going to make up your prediction for this fight.
I like Fury. Fury by decision. I think maybe it'll be a lot like the first fight, where I think you'll see him outbox him. Here's the thing. And again, though, Fury, he's sort of beaten Deontay twice unofficially. Is he going to be a little overconfident? Does he really believe what he's saying? Because one more time, again, one shot from this guy. I mean, I truly believe he's one of the hardest hitting heavyweight champions in history. Maybe not the most skilled, but he's definitely easily one of the top 3 heavyweight champions in terms of punching power. If he gets, he catches something hard in the first 3, especially in the first 3 rounds, it could be over. I wouldn't be totally surprised. It wouldn't be a major shock if Wilder came in and knocked him out in the first 3 rounds. But my prediction is Fury, and I think the longer it goes, advantage Fury, the longer it goes. And if it definitely goes past 6 or 7 rounds, advantage Fury.
That's what I was just going to say, and that was my prediction on yesterday's show. I'm predicting this to go the distance as well, regardless of, despite what both fighters have stated leading up to this. I think both guys are physically peaking. Both guys are mentally peaking as well. And at this level, even at the heavyweight division, it's very, very difficult to score a knockout when both men are this prepared and this resilient. And that seems to be the trend right now, guys. Most reporters, most boxing journalists, most scribes who are going to be there at ringside, they've already given their predictions. And I'd say about 85% of them are predicting either a Fury knockout or a Fury decision. Let's go to the odds right now, guys. The odds are, as of now, according to the book that we recommend the most and that we follow the most, that's BetMGM out of Vegas, they currently have Tyson Fury listed as a minus 250 or 2.5 to 1 betting favorite, with Deontay Wilder as a very live plus 210 or a little bit more than a 2 to 1 betting underdog. Lee, do you agree with those odds, sir?
I certainly do. Even though everyone's picking Fury, you have to remember this guy knocked out Luis Ortiz twice. Okay, and that's a bad man. That's a bad boy. So yeah, I mean, Wilder had this streak of knockouts. It was just amazing. Again, he's got that punch that can just change things at any time. You have to be wary of that. And he's got I don't know how much speed he has at this weight, but he's probably still fairly fast. So no, I don't think that even though it's lopsided in terms of projections or picks, the odds should be pretty close, because I still see Wilder as a live dog, and I still respect the punch that he harbors.
Indeed. Let me ask you this, Coach, Editor-in-Chief. Let me ask you this, brother. Now reach into your history book, right? When is the last time you've seen a heavyweight trilogy in which one fighter has won all 3? And I know the first fight was technically scored a draw, but come on, guys. Let's be realistic. Tyson Fury's won the first 2 fights, unofficially the first one, but by a landslide in the second. How difficult is it to beat a heavyweight contender 3 times consecutively, Lee? And when is the last time that's happened?
Wow. So I can't think of a heavyweight situation. I know. I'm going back. I believe this is true. I think Vinny Pazienza beat Roberto Duran 3 times in a row. That was at super middleweight, and that was when Duran was a little bit past it. I believe he won 3, but it's really hard to find. I can't think of top heavyweights where a guy has won all 3. You're looking at Ali Frazier 2-1, Ali Norton 2-1. Wow, it's. I would have to think about that one. That's a good question. How 3 times is a lot.
That's my point. I can't remember that either, because most of the time, right? But you have to think about this though. Most of the time, 3 fights aren't contracted before the fights even begin. The only reason why we're having a 3rd fight right now is because it was already contracted, right? But no one really demanded it because of the way that the second one played out. So we're getting this.
There's usually not a demand, right? There's usually
that's right.
3 fights. Right.
That's right. So when you consider all of the heavyweight trilogies in the past, they were always super competitive, and almost always it was a rubber match where it was a 1-1 split, right? When you look at Holyfield, John Ruiz, and I'm sorry I mentioned that, right? That's something that we almost want to forget that ever happened. But it was a 1-1 split, hence the trilogy. In this one, so you have to take that into consideration. But Lee is probability rearing its ugly head and leaning towards the title challenger on Saturday night.
Yeah, it could be, because you're eventually saying you have to beat this guy 3 times. So let's go really quickly. Let's go back to Canelo versus Golovkin, where Canelo's team was very smart. They basically had a contract that said this, Joseph. It said that, okay, if Canelo wins the first fight, there's no rematch clause. But if Golovkin wins the first fight, or there's a draw, we can we can enact an immediate rematch clause. So basically, they were saying is Golovkin had to beat Canelo twice, whereas Canelo only had to beat Golovkin once, right? So if you understand what I'm saying, so yeah, I mean, to beat Deontay Wilder 3 times, I mean, it's certainly, in some ways, you look at the first 2 fights and you see that, well, the second fight was lopsided, and the first fight was, most people think Fury should have won. So you think, okay, well, Fury should win this. But then you look at these things like these kind of laws, so to speak, like the laws of this and that, and you think, okay, well, what are the odds of beating this guy that punches this hard, that's this good? What are the odds of beating him 3 times in a row?
That's it. Yeah. That's the biggest factor. That's the biggest intangible that concerns me. Lady probability. That's going to be interesting, guys, and that's something to think about as we move into Saturday night. We go to the comment board once again. Simple Boy. He says, Mike Tyson can KO with a 6-inch uppercut. He doesn't need a wild swing. Big George just needed arm power to lift Joe off his feet. No body weight needed. Wilder has good power against low-level opposition. I understand what you're saying, brother, but I wouldn't really consider Luis Ortiz as low-level opposition. Right.
I was about to say that.
That's like, honestly, and once again, we've been reporting, on his career, Deontay Wilder, since he turned pro, even when he was in the Olympics, right? And honestly, I wasn't a believer in Deontay Wilder that he could hang at the elite level against the likes of Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko, Tyson Fury, anyone of that ilk, until I saw the very first Luis Ortiz performance, in which he was buzzed badly in the 7th, looked like he was out on his feet, walking on feathers, and then he regained his composure and went on to knock out Luis Ortiz. That was in my opinion, that was his career best performance. And yeah, he made somewhat of a believer out of me. Since then, once again, Tyson Fury, boy, he's got a lot more tools in his chest than Luis Ortiz. He's a complete fighter. He can control range at any distance. Let's go to Sid UK. He says, I met Fury twice here in the UK. He's a nice guy. This fight talk is put on by both guys to get themselves fired up. Hopefully they are safe and walk home afterwards. Not been this hype for a fight for 4 years. Would agree with you, my brother. Welcome to the chat room.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
That's an interesting point. I don't think Deontay Wilder's a nice guy. I wouldn't say he's nice. I think he's very. I think he's very competitive, but he definitely has that killer instinct. He's definitely gonna, if you give him an opportunity, he's gonna take it. Like he has that true boxer killer instinct where he's going out for blood. He's not really a nice guy, you know. Now he may be a nice guy to his friends, but he's that typical. But he's like that Clubber Lang type guy, right? Where he's gonna go out. He's gonna go out to take your head off, you know. I mean, you know, that's just my interpretation of it.
No, I agree with you. And you look at fights against Otto Wallin. You look at fights against Steve Cunningham, in which he was having a tough time of it in certain spots. And what did he do?
No, I'm talking about Wilder.
Wilder. No.
Wilder's
Sid
the guy.
Sid UK said, I met Fury twice in the UK and he's a nice guy. He was stating that Fury was a nice guy.
Right.
No.
Both.
Okay. Look, one of the reasons why most people are gravitated and tuned in, dialed into this matchup, is because both guys have somewhat of a mean streak about them in the ring. Like, there is nothing beneath these guys. They'll resort to pretty much whatever they have to resort to in the ring in order to get their hand raised afterwards. That's just my opinion. And in my opinion, welcome to the show, brother. Is there any chance for Fury versus Wilder 4? According to Bob Arum, who just spoke on this morning, he stated, no way in Hades. He said, well, anything can happen. This is boxing. But as of right now, neither fighter has any interest in entertaining a potential fourth fight, regardless of outcome, even if it does result in an inconclusive draw. Want to welcome Andy Ruiz for the first time to the show. Bum Squad. Tell us how you really feel, brother. And no, this is not the tattered up ass Andy Ruiz. But welcome to the show, sir, nonetheless. Frank, my apologies, Frank. I was given the information that I told you. My apologies that he weighed in a little bit heavier. He says disappointed in the tip, but I would bet on it again. God bless you, brother. What are your thoughts on Fury's weight? Well, Lee thinks it's a positive. I think it's also a positive. Once again, Lee pointed out that in his, last fight, he weighed in at what was back then a career high weigh-in at 273 pounds and put forth his most dominant and impressive performance as a professional fighter. So I'll tell you what, if you like the aggression, you like the ability of Tyson Fury manhandling his opponent in the pocket, yes, the 277 is a positive. Wilder trying to not get bullied, yes. And he stated as much after the weigh-in. Hence the added weight, 238, a career high. Major Key tuning up. Guys, if you haven't already subscribed to Major Key's channel, please go ahead and do that. Always a very entertaining and informative show. Thank you for joining us, my brother. Andy Ruiz also says, this fight will be a draw. They'll be fighting until Fury versus Wilder 7. Perish the thought, brother. Perish the thought. I think 3 fights is pretty much all we can handle. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
Remember we had Pacquiao Marquez for, and we actually, not heavyweight, but we had a fourth fight with them, And we had this somewhat of a same situation where it was Pacquiao won the first fight by a controversial, or no, Pacquiao was a controversial draw that Pacquiao should have
Yep.
won, and then he
Mm-hmm.
won the next, and then he won the next two.
Yep.
So you never know.
And the third fight was very controversial. In fact, most ringside observers as well as fight fans felt that JMM should have gotten the decision. It was a split verdict. You remember that? Of course,
I remember.
I remember
my mom saying the tall guy won.
Whoever that was. But no, I tell you what, maybe it was the tallest man laying down. Because you remember the ridiculous post-fight interview with JMM where he was completely naked and he had a sombrero over his Johnson? Or I'm sorry, in Spanish, del miembro.
Wow.
The historian doesn't remember that. That's shocking.
I remember
that was ridiculous.
Well, no, I don't remember that. No. That's hilarious.
Simple Boy chimes in again. Thank you for doing that. Says, I wouldn't say Ortiz is low level, but he is old and only got stopped once, slow and gassed. You may be right about that. Who knows how old these Cuban exiles are actually? He could be actually approaching Evander Holyfield age. Who knows? My brother Randy chimes in again. He says, okay, well, all this muscle and strength, can it get more bloody than the last match? Let's hope so, because blood equates to drama when it comes to the, well, theater of the unexpected. That is the heavyweight division. Frank. Franks asked me, did you get a chance to speak to Sugar? No, I just sent him a text and said, thanks a lot, dude. But I'm sure I'll speak to him before the fight. Well, it looks like Lee dropped out. He should be joining us once again in just a minute. My sister, Denise Wards. Good evening to you, sister. Thank you for joining us. I tell you what, guys, and once again, as soon as Lee gets back on the show, I want to get his take on strategy. And once again, I went through strategy, right? On yesterday's show, but I'll actually, well, repeat that again while we're waiting for Lee. In my opinion, guys, and obviously, once again, Deontay Wilder bulks up to 238, which tells me that, yeah, he wants to stand his ground. He wants to once again try to reaffirm that alpha male stature in the ring, because this is the very first time in his career that he is not the alpha male in the ring. He's not the taller, rangier, bigger, stronger guy in this matchup. He may be the bigger puncher, but he's not the bigger, stronger guy in this. He doesn't have the reach advantage. When you look in years past, performances past, most people have tried to just stay from mid to long range away from that right hand. And he's always been the predator in the ring. Well, in the rematch with Tyson Fury, boy, he had to adopt a very different role, one that he wasn't ready to portray. In this fight, if I'm Malik Scott, like all of this other boxing BS, no, I'm working on two things exclusively, trying to do this in repetition to the point where it's muscle memory and ingrained in his psyche. I'm working on establishing the jab, working on fighting behind an intelligent jab, mixing feints with touch jabs, with hard sticking jabs to the body, chest, and the head. I'm working behind that to set up the big right hand. You've got to do it intelligently. You can't just go in there and expect to hit Tyson Fury without setting up a big right hand, because everyone already knows that's what you have. That's your bread and butter. You've got to disguise it. In the immortal words of Teddy Atlas, you've got to put bugs on the windshield in order to land that big right hand against a very intelligent fighter like Tyson Fury. In my opinion, if he just does that, establishes a jab, tries to win the jabbing contest, incorporates feints, and this is the most important part, get off first. You cannot wait on a fighter like Tyson Fury, or he's going to freeze you with all of his disjunct upper body and head movement. You have to get off first. You have to be the predator in the ring. You have to cut off the ring and close the distance effectively, working behind that jab. If he does those three things, that's his best chance for victory. And it immediately becomes a much more competitive fight than the rematch. For Tyson Fury, you have to give him different looks. You have to mix strategies. You have to use different distances. Occasionally close the pocket, lunge in with the straight right hand. Make it a rough, ugly fight when you are on the inside. But on occasion, use lateral movement, showing him the different stances, occasionally from the orthodox, occasionally from southpaw. Use lateral movement. Make him prove that he's in great condition, not just a big, bulky fighter. Make him use his legs at times. And then quickly jump in a la Bernard Hopkins with the straight right hand, clubbing him. Make it a rough, ugly fight when you're in there. Make him prove that his legs can handle all of that weight. Make him prove that he's in great shape. Make him prove that he can fight for 12 rounds. In my opinion, if you incorporate all of these three different styles, and while using lateral movement, you quickly jump in with the straight right hand, if you do those things, eventually you're going to wear him down and get the knockout in the mid to late rounds. In my opinion, those are my keys to victory for both men. We're still waiting for Lee to get back. Frank stated this. Fury made the point, Wilder's too big for his frame. This would mean he needs an early KO or he could gas out. You know, Frank, I stated this on yesterday's show. If I'm Malik Scott, I'm instructing my fighter to go for broke in the first and second rounds. In my opinion, that's the best chance he has for scoring a knockout before Tyson Fury's eyes get adjusted to the movement, the speed, and the timing and rhythm, right? You do not want to allow a gentleman like Tyson Fury with the highest ring IQ outside of Alexander Usyk in the heavyweight division. You don't want to give him the opportunity to let his eyes get adjusted. He depends on having those feeling out rounds customarily. If you look back throughout his career, he depends on having that feeling out round in the first to allow his eyes and his brain to get adjusted to the movement and the speed of his opponent. In my opinion, that's Deontay Wilder's best chance for getting a knockout. Jump on him early. Go for broke. Set the pace, set the tempo very quickly, and try to bomb him out like your life depended on it. Do not allow him to get settled. Do not allow him to develop that timing and rhythm to where he can dictate the pace of the fight. Jump on him early. That would be my instruction to Deontay Wilder, and try to go for the early knockout. Snoop C joins us with, will the increased muscle mass put more strain on Deontay Wilder's balance and mobility? Well, hopefully he's worked on balance, because to my knowledge, well, that was never really a strong suit. In fact, when you look at how many times he's torn his bicep, that's a direct product of not having good technique and not having proper balance. Basically using his entire upper body to wing and throw shots as hard as he possibly could. So if Deontay Wilder wants to, well, fight a full 12 rounds if he has to, hopefully he's worked on his balance. He's always had very good mobility, but very unorthodox and kind of sporadic footwork. We'll see on Saturday night if he's actually improved in those areas, because he definitely needed it. X Games, thank you for joining us, brother. He says, weird. Wilder been the best fighting lighter. When he was his heaviest versus Fury in the second fight, he complained about weighted suits. Now he's heavier. Will Wilder's speed still be there for the third fight? That's a huge factor, and that's a huge question. That's a variable that we won't know until we see it. And I'm with you, X Games. I have to see it to believe it. In my opinion, it can't be good for his speed and mobility, his agility, his athleticism. I mean, when you look at Anthony Joshua in his first fight with Andy Ruiz, he was huge, very muscular, very big and bulky, and it didn't do much for his reflexes, his speed, and overall quickness. In the second fight with Andy Ruiz, he slimmed down considerably, and he was a lot more athletic in the ring, flying around the ring, being able to use lateral movement for all 12 rounds of the rematch. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but thank you for joining us, and thank you for your comment. Mini Meal, my brother, thank you for joining us, sir. He says, Wilder, don't use another 50-pound suit. Well, according to him, this suit has been, manufactured a lot lighter. But in my opinion, it looks to be pretty much the same type of suit he wore for the rematch. But this one incorporates a ton of lasers coming out of his headdress, coming out of his suit. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens indeed, guys. Just a moment, guys. I'm sorry. I need to take a drink. My throat is getting dry. Oy vey, I'm starting to sound like Bob Aramir. Chingao. We go to Pat. Thank you for joining us, Pat. If Fury takes control early, it's all over. Yes. If Fury takes control early, it's all over. You are absolutely right about that. In my opinion, and obviously looking at his physique, Deontay Wilder, it appears that he wants to try and impose his size, his weight, his strength in this fight. He wants to be the predator once again in this matchup. But, something tells me, though, with all of the quote-unquote improvements that he's been making, right, to his overall arsenal in his just preparation for this fight, something tells me that that bonehead is going to make the same foolish mistake that Anthony Joshua did going into his fight against a technician like Alexander Usyk in trying to outbox the boxer. Something tells me, guys, that Deontay Wilder and Malik Scott have convinced themselves that they're the better technicians in the ring. Guys, don't be surprised if you see a mental midget like Deontay Wilder think that he's the better boxer, and he tries, once again, outboxing the much more technically proficient Tyson Fury. If he does this, it's all over. It's all over. If he once again tries to outbox Tyson Fury, it's over before it started. Young Millionaire, he says, I would like to see Fury to switch to southpaw at times, and when he gets inside, throw a lead left and left uppercut with his power hand. Absolutely. I stated that in my keys to victory, in my opinion, because once again, I think Deontay Wilder is going to try to establish the jab. In my opinion, the different stances and the different positions will throw off and confuse Deontay Wilder and keep him from establishing his jab. From the southpaw position, you throw that check right hook. Yeah, that's going to completely eliminate that jab, won't it, young Bill? I think so. My sentiments exactly. Snoopsy says, Joe, do you think the increased muscle mass will affect Deontay Wilder's stamina due to the muscles demanding more oxygen? That's exactly what I think. In my opinion, Deontay Wilder I think, just from looking at him, listening to him speak, I think he's planning on ending this fight within the first 6 rounds. If it goes into the back half, I think you're going to see him in serious trouble. We'll see. Once again, guys, there are no right or wrong answers until fight night. Minnie Mills says, if Wilder loses by KO, where does he go from here? That's an excellent question. I've stated this already in previous shows, that, look, the loser of this fight, and once again, the stakes are high in this. In my opinion, the loser of this fight pretty much announces his retirement out of necessity. And here's why. If you understand the business of boxing, excuse me, and you understand how these prize fighters work, their psyche, their mentality, how do you convince a heavyweight who's made over $20 million in his last 2 fights, each of his last 2 fights? How do you convince him to step in the ring, partake in another grueling training camp, take the same amount of risks for only 10% of your last purse? Because think about this. What other matchup, if the loser loses by knockout, if the eventual loser gets knocked out, what matchups are going to yield or garner a hefty payday like the one they're making right now? I mean, in my opinion, their purses are inflated. Neither man is a huge ticket seller. Neither man deserves this much. And evidence of this is that the venue is still not sold out. A fight that's supposed to be of this magnitude, a fight this relevant in the history of the sport, it should have been an easy sellout. Canelo sold out in about 2-3 weeks. Anthony Joshua sold out his most recent bout with Alexander Usyk in a day. And this fight for the WBC Heavyweight Championship between 2 behemoths didn't sell out? Tells me that these guys are being severely overpaid. And once again, this event is going to lose money for both Fox and ESPN. So where does the loser go from here? In my opinion, neither man will want to compete for a fraction of what they'll receive on Saturday and what they received in their rematch. Think about this, and let's get our brother Lee back on the show. And I'm going to ask you this question, Lee. Do you really think either Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury will want to continue fighting for 10% of what they've just made in their 2 most recent outings, going from 20 million to 2 million?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money, and I think that it's possible, certainly, because it's still a lot of money. And remember that $2 million is a lot more. That's more than Deontay Wilder was making for a long, long time. I mean,
well, look, Lee, that's not the point. To be honest with you, look at his mentality. There's a reason why he didn't have a tune-up, guys, because he was offered to fight on Fox in a tune-up against, Prince Charles Martin. And the reason why it never came to fruition is because Deontay Wilder was demanding an absurd $10 million just to step in the ring with Prince Charles Martin.
No.
Yep.
Damn.
That's real. That's reality.
It would be difficult, but it really depends. But yeah, I see your point, Joseph. I totally see your point. That makes great sense. I see your point totally.
Just what we know about the business of boxing. Guys, don't be surprised if the loser, especially if they lose by knockout, will retire from the sport. Maybe won't announce it immediately, but they're not going to want to put themselves through another grueling training camp. and take the same amount of punishment, say facing a guy like, I don't know, Luis Ortiz again, Robert Helenius, Andy Ruiz Jr.? They're not going to want Dillian White. Obviously Anthony Joshua would yield bigger dollars. That's the only huge money fight that awaits both guys. Otherwise, they're going to make a fraction of what they made in their most two most recent fights. In my opinion, guys,
I will
the
say
loser will retire.
And they might retire, but they'll come back. I will say this: if you go back to like George Foreman's comeback, Larry Holmes' comeback, they were taking all these fights too for pennies. Like Larry Holmes, even after one fight, he's like, "Look, I'm rich. I get paid pennies for this. I'm rich. I'm doing it because I love the sport and I want to be champion again." You could have a situation where you have these guys, like Foreman, Holmes. Camacho took a lot of fights for pennies. That might not be out of the realm of possibility. Maybe in a year or two. Just want to come back to sport.
Lee, honestly, you're talking about a different era and a different mindset. Those guys were real fighters. Seriously, those guys were fighters. Those guys did it for glory. Like, I know they did it for the prize also, the paycheck, but that was a different era and a different culture. In my opinion, none of the fighters these days are throwbacks. None of the fighters these days have that mentality. They all want to get paid first. Hence the absurd inflated purses. I'm sorry, but they're unreasonable. They become unreasonable. And it's one of the biggest problems that the business of boxing faces at this time. They become unreasonable. When, upon speaking with Bruce Trampler, Hall of Fame matchmaker of Top Rank, he agreed with me. He said these purses have to start becoming more reasonable in order to make these matchups materialize once again. Because with piracy, the money just isn't there. Guys, this is the primary reason why most everyone involved, except for Deontay Wilder, wanted to scrap the third fight. Because the second fight lost money. This fight isn't going to do nearly as well on the pay-per-view platform. I'll be very surprised if it does more than half of the sales of the second pay-per-view fight, the rematch. I'll be very surprised, downright shocked. So in terms of, and I understand what you're saying, Lee, bringing up the mentality of a guy like Larry Holmes, and they do it because for the love of the game, and they love the competition, they love the glory, they love everything that comes with winning. In my opinion, these guys are a far cry from those great guys that made this sport what it is today. In my opinion, they shouldn't even be mentioned in the same conversation. Those are my thoughts, sir. So,
and that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. Let's go. Excuse me, guys. Let's go back to the chat. Old school wrestling fan. Love that moniker, man. I'm an old school wrestling fan as well. Woo! Ric Flair beats both via figure 4 leg lock. Hell yes, he does. And guess what? Still has the energy to party like a rock star afterwards. Toby Bartlett joins us. Welcome to the show, Toby. God bless you, man. Salute to you as well, sir. Wow, War of Weed. Hey, man, I'm not Deontay Wilder, brother. I don't smoke weed chronically. Oh, did I just say that out loud publicly? Oh, I shouldn't have. But in my opinion, guys, that's why he's as delusional as he is. He needs to lay off the mota. Yep, closet secret. Sid UK says, if he tries to box Fury, that is beyond stupid. He needs come from round 1 like Beterbiev and not let Fury get into a rhythm. Strong jab, set traps looking for the KO, body shots regular, and watch feints. Brother, you just recited All of my keys to victory. Great minds think alike, I guess. Or at least fortunate ones do, I guess. Sid UK, you're smarter than the average bear, brother. Excellent, excellent keys to victory, sir. Let's go back down to the comment section. Lee, what are your thoughts basically on all of this? Because to be honest with you, brother, and guys, we're approaching the hour mark. We're going to have to bid everyone an excellent evening at the hour mark. Lee, what are your thoughts? How do you see this fight playing out? I know that you stated that you see Fury winning a unanimous decision, but realistically, would you agree with Sid UK? What does Deontay Wilder have to do to be successful against the ring enigma that is Tyson Fury?
Right. I mean, he's got to get unorthodox. Like, be completely unorthodox. Be completely unpredictable. Okay. Don't telegraph it right hand. Don't telegraph your left hook. He's got to bring a left hook because it's right. Tyson's going to be looking for that right hand all night. Wilder has a very good left hook. He needs to land it. He needs to throw it in angles where Fury can't see it. He needs to be quick with it, and he needs to be quick with the right hand. I think the Beterbiev analogy was pretty good. The only thing is Beterbiev is not fighting a guy much taller, and Beterbiev is fighting guys his size. But all in all, I think for Wilder, he just needs to be unorthodox. He needs to get crazy. He's not gonna box this guy, but he needs to just use a lot of try to use a lot of feints, a lot of movement, and he needs to be able to. He needs to land some home runs. He needs to land some big. Even if he doesn't win by knockout, he needs to land some home runs to get Tyson leery of him. You land those big shots early, Tyson gets hurt. Maybe you can kind of keep him on the back burner for a while and pile up the points that way. So that's what I think he definitely has some of the power stuff. Power stuff has to be there.
Indeed. Hey, Lee, our brother Minnie Mills says volume is low on guy talking. If there's any way you can get closer to the mic or turn up your mic, please do that at this time. We want to welcome our brother Uli X to the show. Thank you for being here, sir. I think Fury can still make some bread in the UK if he loses. AJ White can bring in 5 to 8 million for him. That very well may be the case in Britain. And you may be right. That is a much healthier market for boxers at this time. But it's not going to be anywhere near the kind of purse that he's making tomorrow night, or what he made in his in the rematch with Deontay Wilder. But thank you for commenting, brother. Once again, Andy Ruiz. Deontay's a big female dog. He's getting washed tomorrow. Busted eardrum squad. Once again, Andy, please tell us how you really feel, brother. Why are these two heavyweights? Why can't they sell? It's very rare that heavyweights don't sell. You're absolutely right. In my opinion, and once again, this is something I learned a very long time ago, a very hard lesson doing PR work for fighters. Fans, they choose to gravitate or not gravitate towards a specific entertainer. They either do or they don't. There's no rhyme or reason why or why not, guys. They either do or they don't. It's the same in music. It's the same in motion pictures. It's the same in prize fighting. They either like you or they don't. You could have all three targets that we look for as PR representatives and guys in marketing. You could touch on all three marketing platforms that we look for. You could be charismatic. You could be entertaining as hell in the ring. You could be a good-looking guy. And that's never a guarantee that fans are going to gravitate towards your career. Look at a guy like Demetrius Andrade. If you meet him in person, he's probably one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet within the sport of boxing. He's a good-looking guy. He's an elite-level talent, and he couldn't sell out my living room on a Friday night. There's no rhyme or reason, guys, because Deontay Wilder, if you look throughout his career historically, he's never been a big-ticket seller. I mean, they've tried to shop him around and market him all over the place. They had him in Birmingham, Alabama. They had him in New York, the Barclays Center. They've had him in the Staples Center. They have him in Vegas. He has never been a big ticket seller. And for some strange reason, Tyson Fury isn't even a huge ticket seller in the UK, which is why he decided to move to America. Anthony Joshua is the only superstar attraction in the UK. He is the Canelo Alvarez of UK. Canelo is the only huge breadwinner in North America in boxing, right? There are only two of them currently in boxing, the big money attractions. Everyone else, I mean, there are some moderate attractions like Gervonta Davis, Errol Spence Jr., guys of that ilk, guys at that level. But the only two real superstars that seem to have that crossover appeal and get that mainstream sponsorship and audience are Canelo Alvarez and Anthony Joshua. That's it. Can you tell me why? No. No one can tell you why. But for some reason, the fans love both of them. When you think about Canelo, he's got the personality of a stick. It wasn't until recently that he started talking in English. But for some reason, he is a massive box office attraction. That's just the nature of the business, guys. And it's something that I had to reconcile a long time ago when I was doing PR for certain fighters. And they'll remain nameless. But yeah, that's something that, I just had to come to grips with. Some fighters don't sell, no matter what you do to them, and some fighters just do. That's the nature of the business. Frank, would you change your prediction of distance? Now you have seen the weights of each fighter. Absolutely not. I'm still predicting a Tyson Fury 12-round decision. In my opinion, it's very difficult to score a knockout when both men are this, peaking at the right time physically and mentally. At the elite level, even in the heavyweight division, it's very difficult to score a knockout at this level. Snoopsy, and it's going to be our final comment of the day, and then we'll bid everyone an excellent Friday evening. How come Shelly Finkel isn't as outspoken as he was during the Anthony Joshua negotiations when it came to the allegations of illegal tactics? Snoopsy, if you're asking the question, you already know the answer, brother. Once again, Shelly Finkel, he's been in this business. And once again, Shelly Finkel's been in this business for a very long time. And right now, Deontay Wilder is his biggest money client. Right? So he's not going to do anything to an egoed out individual. Like, he's not going to say anything contrary that goes against what Deontay Wilder's been preaching, because that's his biggest money client at this time. And we all know that if you sneeze in the wrong direction, that doesn't get Wilder's approval, boy, he's going to think that you're against him. Once again, it's that chronic weed use. He's become a paranoid thing, a paranoid shell of himself. Because let me tell you, I used to interview him all the time when he was working with Golden Boy Promotions and he just turned pro. He was never like this when I used to talk to him all the time. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that he became this strange, egotistical, paranoid, delusional, self-proclaimed king of Wakanda. Right? Just say no, guys. Just say no. Some people just can't handle it. In my opinion, Deontay Wilder should have been forced to undergo a psychological evaluation a long time ago before he ever stepped foot in the ring again. That's my opinion. That's my personal opinion. And once again, I'll never write about that. But on this show, you're going to get my personal opinion quite a bit. Frank says, thanks for streaming. Enjoy the fight. You as well, my friend. And guys, please tune in tomorrow night immediately following the fight. We're going to be joined by James Gogi. He's going to be breaking down the action and analyzing what takes place tomorrow night at the T-Mobile Arena. We're going to go live immediately following the action. Andy Ruiz, Busted Eardrum Squad. I love it. Well, I tell you what, I expect you to join us tomorrow as well, Andy. Let's hear if you're singing that same tune, brother. Most of these boxers have to be off their rocker to enjoy getting punched in the head. You're absolutely right. Fighters are very unique individuals. That's why they're in the ring. And on that note, guys, want to thank everyone for joining us. And on behalf of my brother, editor-in-chief of FightSaga.com, Mr. Lee Cleveland, I'm Joseph Herron. You've been listening to War Week Radio. Have a great evening, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow, immediately following the fights.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.